One. Perfect. I see some familiar names. Hi, Lamar. Hi, Natalie. And then I see some new names to the AAP space. So for those of you that don't know who Academic Advancement Programs is, we are an office on campus that wants to connect you with the experts and all of the resources to help you apply to graduate school and to become competitive grad applicants. So if you being here, it seems like you are interested in graduate school, we are so happy that you came. This Welcome Wednesday series is throughout the spring semester. So make sure that you're also telling your classmates, your peers, your roommates that if there's a slight chance that they're interested in graduate school, they definitely want to tap in. And so I'm very excited for all of you to get connected with our amazing guest speaker. She is someone that we have really that we really value and has a plethora of experience to share and insight to give. And so with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to our guest speaker, Dana. Thank you so much again for joining us.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for allowing me to come. And I really just want to say thank you to everyone on this call. I know you've got a lot going on in your lives, with classes, studying, projects, research, whatever it is, jobs, family, all of the things. So I know that your attention today to this particular topic is something that that you're really interested in. I hope that what I can bring to you is some value. And so just kind of letting you know, I hope everybody can see my screen. I forgot to ask that before, but I hope so. So, okay, perfect. Yes, lovely. Okay, so we're going to try and I hope it fast forwarded. You got a picture of me up there, probably photoshopped a little bit better than what you see now, but my name is Dana Mordecai. I'm the assistant director at the University of North Texas. And for those of you who don't know where that is, we're about 45 minutes north of Dallas and Fort Worth. So Texas is a big state, but I'm on the north side of that. And yeah, it's about an hour to the Oklahoma border. That's kind of, if you can kind of vision where that is in the state of Texas. So I have been with UNT and in graduate enrollment management for about 17 years. So it's been a long time, and it's really because I love my job. So I have, some of the other things that I've done in my career is that I've been the president of the Texas Graduate Admissions Professional Organization. I've been a friend of McNair for a very long time. And so I've talked with many students who are pursuing graduate education, even outside of McNair, just trying to give you information on this journey. So just a few slides about UNT, just so that you can kind of know a little bit about the university that I work at. So we do have over 200 degree programs. We've got 136 master's and doctoral degree programs, over 45,000 students. So we are a larger university with about 12,000 graduate students. And we have a significant international student population here at UNT. You can see some other things on here that are brag points about the university. One other thing that the university has done over the last several years is that we are one of 21 research universities. So that's tier 1, or you might also hear R1 is another designation for a research institution. And so there are only 21 tier 1 institutions in the US that are considered a Hispanic serving institution, where we've got 25% or more of our student population that is Hispanic. We are also a minority serving institution, and we're really proud to be a founding member of this Alliance for Hispanic Research Universities. The goal of this alliance is to increase doctoral enrollment of Hispanic students, and also for the professoriate, so Hispanic faculty members is really the goal of these institutions. And so we're really looking at ways that we can encourage all types of students to come into graduate education. All right, a little bit more about some of the types of research and the work that we do at UNT. So you can see here that we do have these research centers and institutes. So there's some of it is very collaborative and interdisciplinary, but you can see that there's several different things here where we have a Center for Play Therapy that is in our counseling master's program, which is ranked #1 in the state of Texas, number 11, I think. Sometimes it's 7, sometimes it's 11, ranked in the US. We also have a Biodiscovery Institute, which is really cool. There's a lot of work that we do. We have a substation in Cape Horn, South America. And you'll see some other things out there. We do have some engineering activities that we do at it's actually a former Texas Instruments plant that we purchased a couple decades ago. But anyway, so that's a little bit about the kind of research. This is actually a group, this picture here, of graduate students and faculty at the Cape Horn, South America, when they were traveling to do some research there. But why UNT? What's so special about us? And just as an example of some of the cool things that are happening at UNT, and just this past year, one of the coolest things I think of really is this top note here where the faculty who they discovered a brand new bird species. So that was done through the work of graduate students and research that we have in that Biodiscovery Institute, which I think is really cool. So we also have, obviously some really great grants to do. These are just a couple of examples of the types of research areas and the work that faculty are doing, both to look at plant seeds and look at those for kind of those plant-based medical applications. And then also we have really a huge effort happening more in data science, information science in that area. So we've got some really cool stuff that's happening. Now, just as something that I hope that you can take away with you throughout the rest of this presentation is about how are you going to be supported as a graduate student whenever you get to that place, right? Whether it's at UNT or somewhere else. These are some of the types of resources that are critical for graduate students, and specifically these items at UNT, where you can see how this is beyond your academic department and how that university is really supporting you. So a couple of different things for anyone who wants to be maybe a university professor. So we have our GSTEP program, which is, it's external to your academic program, but what it does is to actually immerse you and help you develop your teaching philosophy. So more than being the expert in your discipline, right, in that particular focused area, if you want to teach, you need to know how to teach, right? And so this particular program, it's free to you, but at the end of this particular program, you come away with a letter of recommendation specifically about your teaching abilities. So that's really important when you are looking for faculty positions and need to say, yep, I've got a PhD in XYZ, but also I know how to teach that. So obviously there's some other things here, the Career Center, a thesis and dissertation boot camp, all kinds of other things that we do here to support you. So we also, of course, have travel grants available for graduate research. You can kind of see some cool places. We want you to present that research. We want you to share about the kind of work that you're doing, especially here at UNT. And so we do definitely support you with that. So speaking of support, everybody worries about money. I get it. How are you going to pay for grad school? How are you going to be able to get funding? And so this is just kind of a brief list of some of the funding opportunities that we have at UNT. Of course, we have many departments who offer assistantships or fellowships to be a TA or a research assistant, those kinds of things. So for our doctoral students, if you're funded through the department, and it's an employment opportunity, right? So it's really employment through that academic program. If you want to know if you can get that, you should be talking directly to your academic program. But at UNT, our doctoral students can get that stipend with your assistantship as well as a tuition benefit. So that's what we call our full funding package at UNT. Now, we also have other scholarships. If you're a McNair Scholar, we do also have a McNair Scholar Scholarship. And the cool thing about that is it's stackable, meaning you get the assistantship and this can be added on top of that. One other thing I want to point out, if any of you are interested in the biomedical sciences, we do have a GRISE grant, which is a full funding package and includes other support programs kind of packaged in with that particular program. What it includes is clear faculty mentorship. And so it's dedicated to supporting you through that entire program, not only with a stipend and tuition benefit, but also I think healthcare is included in that. And so some other things as well. So if you're interested in that and you're looking at the biomedical sciences, which also includes psychology, by the way. So if any of you are interested in that area, take a look at that. Again, you can see some other funding opportunities that we have at UNT here. Okay, so that was a lot about UNT, a little bit about me. I would love for you guys to look at this slide here. I just want to know a little bit about you. If you want to throw in the chat, kind of the ABC, where are you in your process of looking for graduate school programs, right? So have you applied? Have you already selected something? Have you not even thought about this at all? This is the first time you've been thinking about it. Is that a good way to approach this? I hope. Good. Okay.
We have a lot of B's in the room. Great. We have also some C's. And we have someone that is very interested in UNT since they are moving to Dallas.
Love it.
So they came to the right place today.
That's right. That's right.
I do not see A's.
Okay. Okay. Well, then that's actually very good. Oh, love to see a McNair director from Alaska. This is wonderful. Yes. So, and happy to share this directly with your scholars as well. Feel free to contact me at any time. I love that we don't have anybody who's already made their grad school selection, because the next part of this presentation really is very helpful for those of you who are starting to look at the search process, right? And so what that includes is just kind of this process, right? You've got to get started. And then the bulk of what you're going to be doing is evaluating the programs. And I want to propose a few items for you to consider when you're going through that process. And then of course there's the, well, now what, right? Now I've looked at some of the things and what do I do? So let's kick this off here. And when I say get those spreadsheets ready, I hope that that many of you know what that means. Certainly, if you're in a McNair program, I know that this is something that is presented to you. If you're not, then it's going to be important, right? When you start gathering information, how are you going to keep track of all of this, right? It is so important that as you go through figuring out what programs are out there, what faculty are doing things, what kind of funding. Let's talk about deadlines, right? You've got to keep track of all of that. Please, please, please make sure you're tracking that somehow. Spreadsheets, best way to do that. All right. So you're getting started. right? Of course, you want to define your program interest. More specifically, one of the challenges I know is that we in higher education, especially even graduate education, sometimes we don't make it easy for you. We don't necessarily call, we didn't all get together and say, we're going to all call this degree program the same thing at every institution. It doesn't really work that way. We can do whatever we want, right? So it's interesting in how you're able to find the degree name that you're looking for at each institution. So it's sometimes difficult, right? But narrowing down that research topic, maybe it's a passion project that you want to work on. When you're looking at these programs and trying to figure that out, do you also need flexibility? Let's say you change your mind, right? You say, I want to go study this. I really want to focus on that. But I need to know if that institution that I'm looking at is going to allow for some flexibility if maybe I haven't figured it all out, right? I'm still working on, I know I want to go to grad school. I know I want to study kind of this general area, but maybe I, haven't really figured out exactly the specific topic or the specific research area. So that's something to keep in mind when you're looking for these programs. Now, there are resources to be able to find some of these programs, right? So your faculty in your discipline, McNair staff or other staff that you're working with, grad school fairs, if you have some of those on your campus, or if you're at a conference or something like that. Recruiters like me, my mortgage company thanks you for keeping me employed, right? Of course, there's Google, there's other places. But gradschoolmatch.com is a really great resource if you need to start somewhere. Niche.com also, some of you may have, looked at that before, but it's a great way if you're open to maybe different parts of the country or you want to narrow something down. It's going to help you because there's so many programs out there. How do you find them? These are some resources. All right. Does anybody have any other ideas for that? If you know of another place you've like, hey, I've already started this, throw it in the chat. We'd love to have kind of those other resources out there for you. So, it's something that I love to just share about, hey, I found this really cool place, maybe it's Reddit. Maybe you need to take that with a grain of salt. I don't know. There are lots of places where you can find some of this. So if you have something interesting, feel free to just throw that in the chat. We'll kind of move on unless there's something that comes up that's really we want to shout out there, but feel free to share. All right. So as I mentioned before, evaluating the programs, this is really where the meat is. Okay. So the quality of the program. This is super important, obviously. This is really key. You want to really understand the reputation of the faculty and or the program or even the institution. But when you're looking at these programs, do you want a tier 1 institution? Do you need a tier 1 institution? Are you still uncertain about what that really means? Being a tier 1 institution generally means that there's going to be a focus on research at that institution, which means it attracts faculty who are really research focused. It also means that generally there's some funding, whether that is through grant funding, whether it's through institutional support to graduate students, lots of different things, right? But it also comes with maybe it's a larger school, maybe the faculty are not able to spend as much time with the students as you might want, and maybe you're looking for a smaller setting. So there's a lot of things to consider when you look at, hey, do I really want to go to that kind of school? Now, There are other things like US News and World Report. I mentioned earlier about, UNT has the #1 ranked counseling master's program in the state of Texas, which is fantastic. Is that ranked by US News and World Report? But what does that mean in terms of that? Does that translate to our reputation? Does it really have some impact on how you're going to be able to use that to get a job? Because ultimately, that's what we're all trying to do here, right? Get you a job at some point. So, does it have any impact there? There are other program rankings, whether it's in the discipline itself, like maybe that's more important. Um, it just really depends on what your goals are. So, it's something to consider through that. Okay, now how do you find some information, particularly about faculty and maybe what is going on with them? Now, a lot of faculty do have a page, maybe it's a web page on their departmental website, right? Sometimes the faculty have their own website that they made like in 1994, and they probably haven't updated it since then, and it's really horrible looking. So it just kind of depends on where you're able to find some of the information. But what I would like to propose to you is that there are institutions that have information about faculty, maybe in a centralized area. So this slide is an example of how UNT presents information about faculty. So Dr. Jalowski does some great research, and he's an incredible faculty member. And he does have a page on the biology website. But we also, as an institution, understand that we need kind of that centralized place to put everything. So you can see here where there are these different tabs where you can find specific information that may or may not be on that department website. So it may be something where you want to look around the institution to find other places where you can find details about specific faculty member. Of course, you're going to be finding out about faculty in many other ways, whether it's just a plain old Google search, whether it is readings that you're doing, maybe they're in publications, maybe it's a recommendation from a faculty member. Absolutely. You might get a name, but what else do you know about them, right? So this is another way for you to find out some details. All right. So there's the talk about the quality of the program. So there's a few things I think when you talk about the quality of the program that you really want to consider. One that I think is most important are the program outcomes. So what does this really mean? Well, it means what's happening with students who come into this program and when they're done, right? So how quickly are they getting through the program, right? What's the time to degree? Are they getting jobs within 60 days of graduation? What kind of jobs are they getting, right? Is it within their field? Is it, a tenure track position if you're looking at a university professorship? So there are some kinds of things that are really important to know about what's happening with that program, not just on the front side, like, oh, do you have my research? Oh, what kind of funding can I get? But if you really are looking deep into that program, you want to see what the quality is when students are going through it and when they're done. The other thing is about facilities. This is incredibly important, I think, and not just within your program, like what kind of lab do they have? Do they have up-to-date equipment? But also, how is the university actually putting money into the university? So here's an example. UNT recently built a new visual arts and design building, $80 million building. It's beautiful. We haven't had a new building in like 40 years or something for the art studio art program. Does that mean that we, built a brand new science building at the same time? No. But as the institution, we are putting money into our facilities, right? So we might have upgraded lab equipment at the same time, but the idea is to understand, is the institution, you know, really reinforcing some of the needs that that institution has? If they haven't built a new building on their campus in the last 20 years, well, what does that mean, right? How is that going to affect the funding that you have even for your program? All right, lastly on this slide, the academic and research fit for your goals, absolutely critical, right? So when you're looking at the quality of the program, this goes back to kind of what I was talking about, the difference between, do you really need a tier 1 research institution or not? It really is more important sometimes about working with a particular faculty member, irregardless of what school they are at, if that academic and research fit matches most to what you are doing. Okay. So you've got to really dig into some of that and figure out what all is important to you. All right, so how do you find out some of this information, specifically on those program outcomes? So this slide here is an example of how an institution might present that data to you. This is at Duke University, and you can see how it is not in a specific discipline website, right? This is within their graduate school, but they have a page that actually shows the enrollment statistic, but more importantly, the completion rates, the time to degree, some of the career outcomes for their students. This is where you might have to look elsewhere within an institution to find out some of that information. Sometimes programs have that on their website. Sometimes they don't really want you to know anything about it, okay? So this is just an additional thing for you to think about when you're looking at, where can I find some of this information? All right, so we were talking a little bit ago before folks kind of came in the room about you know, the weather and how important it is. Sometimes I know for you Floridians, or if you're from kind of that tropical area, how maybe you don't like snow so much, right? So this little comic strip, I hope, you know, is kind of a funny little break to show you that, hey, this might be really important to you, right? Obviously, weather and climate could impact you, especially if you're going to a PhD program and you're going to be there for, you know, maybe 5 years or so. That's a long time if you don't own a coat. Okay, so keep that in mind. But you know, maybe it's not all bad. Maybe you can suffer through it for a little bit, especially if you're finding the right program, if you're getting great funding, all of those things. A couple of other things I want you to think about though, when you're looking at these institutions and you're looking at these programs, it's not just about the weather, but also what about the cost of living in that particular area? We like to pick on New York. We like to pick on California. Obviously, those places are crazy. But you know, Austin, Texas, ooh, oh my gosh, it is insane the cost of living in that particular area right now. The Dallas-Fort Worth area, we're still okay. Housing prices are a little bit not so still, but in terms of comparing to some of those other geographic regions throughout the country, we're actually doing pretty good. But it's something that you might have to really consider. Now, also, when you're thinking about being in a place that long and you're going to be doing a graduate program, what about other opportunities either during your program there or after your grad career? Do you want to be in a location where, okay, I'll pick on Nebraska, for example, right? You're going to be kind of in surrounded by cornfields or whatever they grow in Nebraska. And sorry if anybody's from Nebraska, I'm not picking on you, but you know, there's you know, maybe just it's a different vibe than what you're looking for, right? Maybe you want to be in a large city or a large metropolitan area because there might be more opportunities for work with industry. Maybe has a large population of institutions if you want to continue on in academia. So it's just something to keep in mind. Now, again, not that you can't have some of those opportunities if you're at a different geographic region. You just got to think about it, right? What is it going to look like while I'm there, but also after? Okay, so I mentioned this a little bit earlier when I was talking about UNT resources, but there are absolutely many resources that institutions provide to graduate students that are beyond your academic department. Of course, you want to look to them first to say, how are you going to support me, right? Do I get a faculty mentor? How does the funding work in that department? But beyond the academic department, there are different things. And so these are some examples of those types of support that perhaps you can look for. Professional development, right? So this is maybe those teacher training programs like I mentioned before. Thesis and dissertation support. So boot camps, or sometimes there are maybe research grants that absolutely go specifically towards your dissertation research. It can be travel grants, additional funding like institutional scholarships, and then there's access to tools specifically for grad students like PD education, right? And so oftentimes it is the institution that is purchasing that tool or supporting those workshops, right? Organizing those. So these are things that you might have to look outside your academic department when you're considering, should I apply to that program, or how else is the institution going to support me? So how do you find that stuff, right? Here is another example from the University of Chicago in how they have kind of pulled together a lot of those resources that they are, saying, you're a grad student at U Chicago, this is how we're going to support you, right? And so there's lots of different things you can see on here, like, fellowship advising, writing resources, Center for Teaching. So there's sometimes, and again, this is not necessarily within a department's website or a specific discipline website. This is within maybe the graduate school is offering this information. So you might have to look outside of those web pages of the maybe the biology department, right? Or whatever it is that you're looking at. Look at the institution and how they support you. All right. There is more to life than academics. I know you might not think about it right now. Someday you can think about, okay, well, maybe there really are other impacts to what you need to consider that might have some bearing on your decision as you look forward to applying to graduate programs. So one of those might be the campus climate and culture, right? How much of this is important to you on, what is the diversity like on the campus? What is their emphasis on research? What does the social atmosphere look like on that campus, right? And it might not even be just on that campus. You might be looking specifically at the department. You are, as a graduate student, going to be kind of sheltered and focused within that discipline. But it might be important to you to look at both ends, right? Both the academic department, but then also what does the institution look like? Then there's also something you might want to consider, like what kind of advocacy is happening on that campus for graduate students. So that typically might be through graduate student government or some other type of group, or maybe you really are interested in being involved with some kind of student organization as a graduate student. There are plenty of them. Lastly, you might also want to know about what is that community relationship like with the institution in that area, right? What do the townsfolk think about the institution. How do they interact with students? What do the students think about that town? So, it's more than just, okay, do they have a Target? Do they have a Starbucks? Do they have an In-N-Out? Whatever your, criteria is of like stuff you can't live without. But it's also like, what's the vibe in that town? Do they, they're really into having a relationship with the institution. And maybe that's important to you. Maybe it's not. It's just another thing to kind of think about. All right. So funding opportunities. All right. So one of the things here is that I'm not a funding expert, right? And it varies across the board. But these are some questions and things to think about when you're looking at the funding opportunities, right? Because almost every institution is going to be slightly different in some way in maybe how they consider the funding part. Is it considered during the admissions process, right? Do they do it after you're admitted? These are other questions I think you can really ask, sometimes even before you apply, after you apply, during an interview process, perhaps. How long is this funding offered? Does it start day one? And let me kind of illustrate why that's important. Because sometimes an institution might have their fiscal year, right? So when their budget starts, maybe it's on September the 1st, but classes start on August 22nd, right? How does that overlap work? What does that look like to you? When do you actually get your first paycheck? So those are some things that maybe you want to find out. And again, maybe these aren't at the beginning that you're asking these questions. Maybe they're further along in the process. But there might be some additional benefits that you want to ask about specifically, maybe before you apply, probably after you apply. But what about the tuition, right? How much of that is being covered? Do I get health insurance as a graduate student? What are parking options? Do I get a better parking spot if I'm a TA, right? So these are some things you can find out about that likely aren't going to be deal breakers necessarily, but sometimes they might be. So, and then of course, what other kinds of funding and support can the institution provide? Is there a University McNair scholarship, or is there some kind of diversity focused scholarship that you might qualify for? Are they stackable, like I mentioned earlier? Okay, so now what, right? This is a lot of information, but like, what do you do now with all of this? So these are some recommendations I have. There are I know telling you to go on a website and fill out a form, probably not what you're looking to hear. However, it is a great way for you to get some of that information without you having to dig too hard. So on, all kinds of websites nowadays, there's going to be a little form and say, hey, sign up for more information. Do that, okay? It helps to make sure that not only are you getting information into your inbox, set up some folders and put it in there so you can look at it when you have time, but sometimes it also makes a difference to know at the academic department, hey, have you been talking with us before? Like, have you been reaching out to us, prior to applying? Maybe that might make a difference, right? Because it's going to show the university and the academic program that you really do have some interest in their program. Now, you can do that by just filling out a form, but also absolutely, you're going to want to reach out to the program also. Whether that's to ask the specific questions, whether it's to connect with a specific faculty member, whether it's to find out, hey, can I get a list of your current grad students to reach out to? Is there a current graduate student that would be willing to talk about the program and what, their experience has been like? And then, of course, talking to grad school recruiters like me, we love it if you would come up to our table, reach out to us, email us. You can absolutely email me anytime if you have a question about the overall search process. So that leads us to questions that you may have now. If anyone has any specific questions they want to throw out, I don't know if you can unmute or throw that out. Tell me who you are, what kind of program you're looking for. Now's the time.
I
know
have a question.
Yeah.
Oh, so sorry. Did someone else have a question?
Mm-mm.
No? Okay. I guess my question is, in our office, sometimes we have students that are going to be graduating a little sooner than expected. And sometimes they basically they're having that realization later in their bachelor's experience. So are there any just upfront tips for our graduating seniors? Maybe graduation is this May and they're now just kind of in that process. Does that make sense?
Yeah, there's sometimes two issues that happen, and it can be with students who haven't really thought about this before, and you're like, oh, now I see that I really do want to go into this, or they've been planning on one other pathway, and then kind of through the senior year, kind of realized, oh, you know what? Just kidding. That's not at all what I really want to do. I have an example of my daughter's best friend who her entire bachelor's program, she was going to med school. She worked in, faculty labs. That's what she was doing. And she got to the MCAT and decided, you know what? I don't want to do this at all anymore. But luckily, she had started doing some research with a faculty member and really did use some time, maybe 3 or 4 months, and realized that absolutely was the pathway she wanted to go. This was the spring semester of her senior year. So she had missed a PhD application cycle to get into graduate programs. So what was she to do, right? What are some of the options out there? So it depends on what you're looking to do, but sometimes there can be some kind of preparation program, maybe in a master's program that could be like a 1-year program. It allows you to continue learning, continue developing research skills, without having to really jump into maybe a 5-year PhD program. Now, maybe that's still, you're just like, I'm still trying to maybe figure out, a pathway. It is not at all an issue for you to maybe need to go work for a year, right? And maybe it's in your field, maybe it's not. It depends on what your ultimate goal is. I know that for some programs, there is going to be some concern, especially if you're going to be, going into a research area. How are you going to maintain those research skills if you decide, you know what, I just need to get like an office job somewhere and, kind of buy myself some time until maybe the next application cycle comes, which is fine. But again, it depends on the program that you're looking for. But if there is this gap and you're not still maintaining some of those skills, then the program may have some question about that. Now, how are you able to do that? A couple of different things. Volunteer, right? Volunteer in a lab, find some other organization that you can volunteer with. You could maybe even take graduate level classes as a non-degree seeking student, right? So there's there's some different ways in which you can um, fill some of that time until you really figure something out. If you're a little late, kind of in a current application process. I hope that answers some questions and probably then some.
No, I love that. And I think, basically is if you've missed, let's say, because of your late arrival to this realization, be strategic on how you kind of use the rest of your time until the next point to apply. Be very mindful and picky or strategic in what you're going to do in that time. I love that.
Yeah.
We
And I
do-
think
oh, sorry.
one other point about that is probably to ensure that you're maintaining relationships with the faculty that you might need a letter of recommendation from, right? So if you're kind of again kind of late to some of this, how are you going to keep in touch with them? And it might just be, some email correspondence. It might be taking them out for coffee. It might be reading their publications, just keeping abreast of what's going on, but you still are going to have to maybe ask somebody at some point for a letter of recommendation. And you don't want too much time to have gone by where they're like, who are you again? So just
I
another.
love that. That reminds me of there's like a Spanish saying that's like out of sight, out of mind in love relationships, out of sight, out of mind. And so you want to make sure that professional connection, that professional relationship is still you're able to still have that connection. I love that. We do have some questions that are a little bit I in the chat, they seem a little bit personalized or individual. So I can let you read them, but I can also say, I love these questions. And what I challenge the students to do is, these are great questions. Now your homework is to email Dana directly, right? So that you can have an even more, an even better answer and have that time. I'll turn it over to you.
Absolutely. I think, we've got some incredible programs. We also have a lot of them, right? And so I know that for you as an individual student, you've got this kind of one area that you're looking at, fine arts and sports psych. And we do have those programs. So I would be happy to give you some more detailed information. But I do think an easy way to make sure that I'm getting you all of that information is absolutely email me with your specific things. It helps to know kind of the timeline of what you're looking at so that I can help you with some of the specific details and with contact information, right? I'm not an expert in any of our programs, really. My job is to help connect you with those specific people, maybe within a program. But anytime you can email me and I can help kind of cut through some of that Google searching for you. I will be happy to do that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Let's see. There's one more. All right. So I did get a direct message. Do you think there's necessary measures to take when we're looking for online programs or evening programs at any institution? That's a good question.
That is a good question. So I think that I guess here's my experience. I'm currently in an online master's program myself, right? I work full time. I have adult kids, but they still are a lot of work sometimes. I have aging parents that I take care of, and so there's a lot going on in your life likely that you're looking for, evening programs or an online because you need that convenience. And so my experience through this program has really been, what is the flexibility? You really need to know about whether or not it's asynchronous or synchronous, right? And if you don't know the difference, asynchronous is you can log in and do your work kind of whenever. There are going to be, homework assignments and due dates and that kind of thing, but you can do it at 2 a.m. in the morning if you want to. The synchronous classes are going to be, hey, we're going to meet every Wednesday at 6 p.m., even if it's on Zoom. So knowing what the options are and really having a good idea about what your learning style is, I think is super important. Um, Also, it's being prepared to make sure that you have a good organization system set up for this, right? Whether that is to find resources such as books, understand what your library can provide to you through that particular online program. So I hope I hope these are a couple of things just to think about if that helps answer the question.
I think that was great. Just checking the chat to see if anything else pops up. So
Absolutely.
they said that it does. Thank you so much.
Good, great. And UNT does have over 80 online programs. There are a lot of them out there. And one thing I will mention about online programs that has certainly shifted over the last, even really through the pandemic, I think is that there used to be, and this is probably before a lot of you were born, but really a kind of a stigma on online programs, and that maybe they weren't thought of as the same as maybe an in-person. All of that is out the window these days, right? I mean, certainly for those of you who had to, go through high school or go through college with, pandemic forced virtual everything. I mean, man, it was rough on all of us. But the employers, I think, also understand that there are reputable institutions that are providing quality education through a virtual modality. So, it's certainly looking at what are all of those options out there is helpful.
Perfect. I'm just checking the chat to see if anyone else wants to ask a question. We still have about 5 minutes. If there's nothing else, I also want to give everyone the time, back if anything, but we just want to thank you so, so much, Donna, for being here with us. We really appreciate it. And I just want to say to students, you have a connection now. This is now, the ball is in your court to go ahead and reflect on what was shared, create your sort of game plan. And also, I'm gonna say this for Donna, but check in with her. Also,
Great.
see, use her as a resource and make that connection to your benefit, right? Because this is all maybe new for a lot of us. Right. So thank you so, so much, everyone. And thank you so much, Donna, for being with us. We truly appreciate it.
Absolutely. And I hope that you can understand, of course, I would love to share information about UNT, but at the end of the day, my goal is to make sure that you're getting all the information that you need to find the right program for you. So if I can help connect you with someone else at a different institution, then I'm happy to do that. So much like my daughter's best friend, kind of here's the rest of the story about that. She did a graduate prep program with the Baylor College of Medicine, and 2 weeks ago had an interview for a PhD program at Johns Hopkins University. And those were due to some connections that I had with some folks, just to make sure she knew who else to contact, right? So it was all on her. She did all of the work. But I said, oh, here's another name that you can reach out to find out some more details of that. So I'm just here to help provide a lot of that information. But certainly, if you want to know about UNT, would love to have you learn more about that as well.
That's awesome. Congrats to her. That's amazing.
Yes, very excited.
And so just the last message that I see in the chat is thank you so much kindly to the both of us. It was a pleasure gathering this information for their future research process moving forward, and that they truly appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, I think with that, that's a good way to kind of close off. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a good rest of your day.